So we talked a little bit about MCP a second ago, and of course, I don't know, maybe it was 2 weeks ago that we talked about it, because either that or it's just been a crazy week, because MCP just like caught fire. I mean, it was
Yes.
everywhere and insane. And we talked about it even at the very beginning, that there were gaps from day one, that, and I think, in fairness, Anthropic acknowledged there were gaps. It wasn't like they're out there saying, hey, this thing is baked and ready for prime time. But there is a woman by the name of Elena Cross who did a post on Medium that has arguably the best title I have seen for a tech article in a really long time. The title of this article is "The S in MCP Stands for Security." And of course, there is no S in MCP. And so it was like this brilliant, just like way of identifying the gap. And so, it goes on to point out that there's all kinds of potential risks with MCP. Um, and I don't. Again, there was no surprise here. We knew that from day one, that this was something that was going to have to be solved for. I do think the article does a really good job of pointing out that maybe the severity of that is a little bit bigger than people have counted on, and why it probably means there's going to be more time. That it's going to take more time to really get this off the ground in a meaningful production kind of way, which of course is impactful to what we just talked about with agent to agent. Is, well, agent to agent doesn't exactly rely on MCP. It is as a complementary, and you're going to have a hard time fully realizing one without the other, I would say, because if agents can't reliably connect to the underlying systems of record, then having them communicate with each other doesn't do much good. So, I think they sort of go hand in hand. So, there was nothing groundbreaking in here for me, other than the fact, oh yeah, this is maybe a little bit more than I was really thinking through. But I mean, did you have a reaction? What was your take on it?
Yeah, so I think the big lesson here is, even with something as cool as model context protocol, when we're thinking about augmenting models, we have to remember that there's a lot that is not in place in terms of the basic validation, authentication, and auditability of the activity that we are doing right now. We are building all this from scratch. This is the Wild West. And unless something is literally defined as existing and is defined as something part of your governance or compliance structure, you should assume that it is not there right now from a model perspective. Everybody who is working on the model or agent side will tell you that they are building the plane as they're trying to land it or fly it. This is really tricky stuff, quite honestly, and we are seeing a lot of stuff, work going directly from research and development to productization, because the market is demanding it. People are demanding change so quickly. Going for a second back to Google Next, part of the challenge with the Google Next announcement is that it was this big blend of stuff where a lot of it had been announced 6 days ago. So people were saying, well, it's not new for Google Next because the cycle for tech updates is so fast now. And MCP is just another example of that. That although it's a very promising approach to be able to augment your models, it does not mean that it is fully enterprise ready from a pure compliance, governance, and security perspective. And you should definitely be on the lookout for prompt engineering, prompt injections, and basic threats to your model, because those things, the protections have not inherently been built in from a native context.
Yeah, one of the things, and I think that nails it, right? That the lack of a native security self-controlling sort of apparatus is the gap here, right? So some of this, like when I go through the list of the items she pulls out, some of this I say, well, you can manage that on your end, right? Prompt injection as an example, right? Well, you can build safeguards against that. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if the ingress point is coming out of an MCP server flow versus, someone actually just prompting somebody in. You can build those safeguards. But it does point out there's a handful of elements of it, right? One of the challenges with MCP, by definitions, it's an abstraction layer where we're sort of handing off some of the connection elements to this MCP server, because that's what the whole point is to make it easy. I just make this connection, hand it off. And one of the things that she calls it the rug pull, where effectively I have that connection, I looked at it, it looks good, But because I don't own the full definition of that, that definition can get changed in the back end, either by accident, or it can happen because there's something, they've got a security breach and something gets changed. And so that's, I think, the issue. And because there's no native sort of way of managing that within the MCP protocol, that is potentially a risk. So it more than anything, I think it's a good reminder for your CIO. Like anything, don't get too swept up in the hype and the craze. I remain very bullish on MCP overall, but I think we are very early, and I think there's obviously what this points out is there's still a whole lot of work to be done.
Yeah, and the stuff that is coming out is not getting 6 months of testing like most enterprise software features typically do before they get brought out. The stuff is being invented and then shipped directly to you, and caveat emptor, and just be careful with what you're doing. You should probably have a little lab in place to be able to test all of this out before bringing it into production.
Well, it is. It's funny you say that. I don't know if we forget, but almost everything that we talk about, everything that gets released, these companies are always releasing it as a preview, as a test. It's like that's always the case, and because it is moving so fast. So